So in the front room of my workshop, I have this handmade workbench. It's just made out of some old scaffolding boards, so it's softwood, so it means it marks easily. It doesn't really matter. And this is for my hand tools. Got a little kind of alcove dip there in the middle that I put things like chisels and stuff when I'm not using them. And then I've got my tool wall, which I'm kind of slowly filling up with all my hand tools. Some of them are quite old, some of them I've inherited from either my dad or my granddad. Some I've found in just car boot sales and second hand, and then once you polish them up and sharpen the blade, they work really well. And next to my tool wall, I've got all my clamps. This is kind of like a saying that you can't have too many clamps in woodworking. So every time I get a little bit of money, I just kind of upgrade and get another full set. And underneath my workbench is a little bit I've made from my CNC machine, which is run off this laptop. I've then got a little box made out of plywood that just holds all the electronics. This is mostly kind of DIY, this CNC machine, heavily upgraded from an old kind of cheap Chinese version you can get on eBay. But it works really well. I'm going to build a kind of door for this little unit so that I can keep the sound in when I'm working. And then in the corner I've got a little kind of admin cubby hole. This is for kind of wrapping different items. I've got all my stationery, just everything I could need. I've got little wax seals and black craft paper for wrapping up stuff and sending it away. It's nice to just have a bright light and some, a flat clean surface to work on. So then into the back room of my workshop, this is where I keep all the louder, messier tools where there's a lot of dust. I like to keep this in the back and keep it out the front where, I can sit and have my lunch kind of in peace and quiet. So you can see here I've got most of the tools running along one side of the one wall of the workshop. Up into this, you can see the pipes there for the dust collection system, and they all in turn run into my dust extractor, which sits at the back of the workshop, and just behind my table saw, which is kind of the heart of everything, so it sits right in the middle. So this is one of the best things I ever got. This is like truly the heart of the workshop. I got this second hand from a company that I think made kitchen furniture. But it's great. It's way overpowered for what I need, but it's nice to know that, it can cut through anything I throw at it. It's a sliding table saw, meaning that it has half of the large table and rolls back and forwards on bearings. So it's quite good for cutting large sheets of plywood, things like that. And you can do lots of repeatable cross cuts with a little fence here with adjustable kind of stops. I've got dust collection hooked up over the top of the blade as well as around the back. I've got a little circular kind of bench sander here with a belt on the back. As many different grades as I can think of sandpaper. I constantly seem to run through these. And then underneath I've got, this is kind of loads of stock for making up products. So if a dice tray comes in, I've got some of the pieces sitting already made. So above the tool wall, I've got this air cleaner, which is kind of like a belt and braces approach to dust collection. So the dust collector gets the majority of things, but all the fine dust, the more dangerous stuff, will get circulated through this machine and basically filtered out, and I can control this with a remote control whenever I need to. This is the little kind of fence thing I've made for my router. This is extremely useful, just being able to slide back and forth and make micro adjustments to whatever I'm working on and whatever I'm pushing through the router. It's a lot safer as well. You get a lot more control this way. I've done similar kind of DIY improvements to this bench drill. I added a little small LED ring to kind of light up whatever I'm working on. And I added a set of digital calipers, which helps me set exact distances for wherever I'm drilling. This is really helpful when I'm cutting out the circles for my dice chests. This bandsaw I got semi-recently, but it's huge and it weighs a ton. I could hardly get it in the workshop. It wouldn't, it'd hardly fit through the door. It's an amazing machine though, and it allows me to do so many things. The table saw is amazing for cutting straight lines. This cuts everything else. And finally, my dust extractor. This is a really large unit, but again, I kind of want to take dust extraction seriously because I've got to think about my health and I don't want to be breathing in any particles. So I've also got a system set up where I switch on the machine starts spinning, and then this automatically trips a relay, which goes to a control unit, which then this system will turn on the dust extractor. And yeah, you can see it just switches on the dust extractor automatically, which means instead of me having to go across and switch it on every time I use a tool, I can just kind of forget about it. And you can see that each tool has a pipe and a dust gate going up and feeding into the dust extractor. So it really is nice just to have this taken care of and just forget it's even there. You can see I've got blast gates on each of the machines, which means you can kind of restrict and allow the airflow depending on what you're working on. And really this is the only thing I have to do, either open or close these gates. I also have this little kind of scoop on the floor, so whenever I'm sweeping up, everything gets sucked up into the machine. And on this wall I've got all my large stock like sheets of plywood and my little bin for offcuts. And it's amazing how quickly I kind of gather little bits and pieces, but they're always useful for another project. And then in the corner I have this set of drawers, which is all my little bits and pieces like magnets, hinges, screws, anything you can think of for, say if I'm doing a dice book, I can just grab all the bits I need and take it to the workbench. And then it's nice having just a little space here kind of for assembly and laying out things that I'm working on and just kind of getting stock of where I am.